Good evening, good evening, good evening. How is everybody doing today? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Shelly. Just in case you don't know, welcome to Shelly's English School. And we're ready and set to do this week's live English lesson. Did we do one earlier this week? I'm not sure. I don't really remember. We might have already done one this week, but nevertheless, today it's Thursday here in Japan, and we're going to be doing a live lesson. We're going to be practicing some intermediate and advanced question making. So today we're going to focus solely on you making questions. All right. So as always, I will put the lesson onto the screen, and I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to share my screen here, and this is today's lesson. Questions. Okay, so we're going to be doing this a little bit interesting. It's going to be kind of like a reverse question style. What does that mean? Basically, that means I'm going to give you the answers, and then you have to make the questions. All right, so I'll be giving you the answers. You'll be making the questions. Before we do that, let's go over a couple of the common types of questions. Now, this beginning part is just a little bit of grammar to get us started. As you can see, the title, questions. One of the very first formats, one of the most common formats, is going to be format number 1. Let's make this bigger so it fits onto the screen, and I'm checking mine to make sure that everyone can see it clearly. So one of the very first question formats is using the be verb. All right, so whenever we're making a question using the be verb, especially a WH question, if you look at the screen, we will have the pattern that we're going to follow. Okay, the pattern here says WH plus the be verb, and we have a subject, and then we could have another verb. We could have an adjective. We could have an adverb. There's many things that we could put after the subject. So let's look at a couple of the example questions here. We've got, what are you doing? All right, so that's a very simple question. If you look, we got our WH word there. We got the be verb is there. My subject is here. And then I'm using a verb in this one, so I've got my verb there. All right, so we're going to be following that pattern. Two other examples are, when are you going to New York? When are you going to New York? And then, why were you late? If you notice, this is the past tense of the verb, past tense. And then we're finishing it with an adjective in this situation. But the pattern is the same. It's following that same pattern. Okay, so let's look at the second type of question format. In here, it says most verbs. All right, so this is not every verb. I'm just going to say a lot of the verbs, we're going to be following this grammar pattern right here. So we have our WH. We'll have do, does, or did, subject, and verb. All right, now this is not everyone, but this is a lot of verbs will follow this format. So if you notice, we've got WH, it's where, all right? And then we're going to move on to do. It's right here, where do. I've got my subject. My subject is you. And then we're going to go with a verb, which is live. Where do you live? Okay, still following that same pattern. Next question, how often do you work? Then, who did you go with? This is a past tense question. So there are many different types of questions we can make, and that's what we're going to practice today. Okay. Hello. We've got, who do we have here? Japan Dynabook. Hello, how are you today? You work 5 days a week. Okay, how often do you go to work? I work 5 days a week. Nice, so you're answering my questions. Great job. Japan Dynabook. Where in Japan do you live? Who did you go with? I went all by myself. Nice. So here you're answering all the questions, which is great. But in today's lesson, we're going to be making the questions. Now that we know how to make these questions, let's go over what we're going to do. So basically, we are going to do a reverse question and answer, a reverse question answer. That means I'm not going to make the question and you answer it. We're going to do it reverse. I'll give you an answer and then you make the question. All right, so let's say, for example, I give you this answer right here. Okay, let's go. Answer. Okay, so my answer is going to be okay, so that's my answer right there. Let's zoom out so everybody can see. I went shopping on the weekend. I went shopping on the weekend. That's the answer. Now, what question goes with this answer? All right, what question goes with this answer? That's what your job is going to be. So we got the answer is kind of the weekend, right? So we need to make a question. We need to make a question for this. So if I'm thinking of a question, my question for this would be, there's many questions we can do. Maybe my answer is on the weekend. Maybe my answer is shopping. Let's go here. Let's shopping. So what did you do on the weekend? What did you do on the weekend? That's a great question for this answer. I went shopping on the weekend. What did you do on the weekend? Okay, I can make a when question. When did you go shopping? Well, I went shopping on the weekend. All right, so there's many questions you could ask. All right, so that's what we're doing. I'll give you the answer. You will give me the question. Okay, I'll give you the answer. You give me the question. And we're going to start off kind of with easier exercises, easier answers. But as we go on, the answers and the questions will become more and more difficult. We will be using more and more intermediate and advanced grammar. So, but at the beginning, just going to get you warmed up with some easier ones. So let's go to number 1. Okay, again, please make a question. Please make a question. All right, so please make a question for each answer. So here is my answer. She's been working here for 2 years now. She's been working here for 2 years now. What would be the question? She's been working here for 2 years now. All right. I think for 2 years is probably your answer. Okay. So what I would do, my question here is I'm going to make a how long question. How long question. All right. So let's put the question right above it. How long has she been working here? Okay. How long has she been working here? Just make this a little smaller so it fits in. Okay, how long has she been working here? She's been working here for 2 years now. Okay, whenever you see, this for, we often will ask a how long question. Okay, and then the question and answer, I always say this to students, the question and answer, they should use the same words, right? So she's been, this is has. So you notice we've got has here. Okay, we've got been here. We've got working. We've got here. Okay, so we are, and then we've got she in the middle here. The questions and answers will always match with their words. All right, so if you just listen carefully, if you read carefully, whenever anybody asks you a question, just use the same verb, same auxiliary verb to answer. All right, so let's go on to number 2. They went to a new restaurant downtown last night. They went to a new restaurant downtown last night. So what would the question be for this answer? This is the answer. You must make the question. So I would say maybe for me, I'm probably going to assume the new restaurant is the answer. The new restaurant is maybe the answer. So my question here would be, where did they go last night? Where did they go last night? Okay. So again, same words. We got went is go. They is they over here. Last night is last night over here. All right. So we're using the same words. Where did they go last night? They went to the new restaurant downtown last night. Now, you could ask a different question. If you have a different question, feel free to leave it in the comment section. Feel free to leave it in the comment section. Anybody watching on the replay as well, you know, there is a different question for this. There is a different question that works. I chose where, but if you have a different question word, leave it in the comment section. Even on the replay, anybody watching on the replay, leave your answer in the comment section. Also, anybody watching this on the replay, if you're not a subscriber, make sure you hit that subscribe button. All right, let's keep moving. Let's keep moving. Let's go to the next question, number 3. We have to submit the report by Friday. We have to submit the report by Friday. So I personally, I'm going to say that's probably my answer right here. You know, by Friday. So if I make a question for that, we have to submit the report by Friday. Friday is a day. If there's any, you know, whenever we're talking about a day or a time or a month, right? My question is going to be when. Okay. So when do we have to submit the report? When do we have to submit the report? We have to submit the report by Friday. Okay, good, good, good. Okay, so again, if you choose something else, a different question, just let me know. All right, let's move to number 4. He was late because he missed the bus. He was late because he missed the bus. Now here, we've got this sort of key word. You know, the key word here is going to be because. Whenever you see the word because, we know that we're answering a why question. A why question. So my question is going to start with why. Okay, and you notice we've got the be verb here. So we need to have that be verb pattern. All right, so let's put the be verb pattern up here. So WH word plus my be verb plus my subject plus verb or adjective or adverb. So by looking at that pattern that's on the screen right now, right? Why was he late? Very, very, very simple question. Why was he late? Okay, let's move on to number 5. Okay, they are planning to move to a different country next year. They're planning to move to a different country next year. Okay, there can be multiple questions here. Okay, so whenever I put a star, that means there is more than one question you could make. I'm going to only share one question. So again, that means if you have a different question, leave it where I can see it and I will check. All right, so for me, again, if you look, we've got that be verb here. So the be verb, we know that we're going to use the grammar pattern on the screen. WHB, subject, verb, adjective, or adverb. Right? So for me, I would say next year is my answer. So maybe I'll start with when. Okay, we're talking about a time again, next year. So when are they planning to move to a different country? When are they planning to move to a different country? Okay, not different-y, sorry, different country. When are they planning to move to a different country? Well, they're planning to move to a different country next year. Okay, let's keep moving. All right, so we've got the answer there. We're starting to get a little bit more difficult now, a little bit more difficult with our question. So the answer here says the contract had already been signed by the time the manager arrived. Okay. The answer one more time. The contract had already been signed by the time the manager arrived. Again, we could have many possible answers here. Maybe we can make a what here. Now, I do want to put, again, a little star here. I do want to put a little star behind this one as well, because there's multiple questions we could ask. Multiple questions. Now, also, I do want to point out, we've got had been signed. Now, this one here, we are going to be using a different question pattern. Okay, we're not going to be using the two that I've already shared. Okay. So for me, maybe my question, I'll ask a WH question. So for me, I'm going to say the contract. The contract is the answer. Okay. So maybe I'm going to say what had already been signed by the time the manager arrived. What had already been signed by the time the manager arrived? Okay. Again, if you have a different question, that's fine. If you have a different question, please share it in the comment section. Okay, so that got a little bit more difficult. Let's look here. All right, the answer here is also very difficult. Had they known the meeting was canceled, they wouldn't have shown up. Had they known the meeting was canceled, they wouldn't have shown up. What's the question that you will make? So we're trying to figure out a question, and this is the answer, okay? So we're doing reverse questions and answers. So had they known the meeting was canceled, they wouldn't have shown up. Okay, so for me, again, I'm going to go maybe WH on this. So let's get it where you can see what. That's the question I would use here. I would start with what. Okay, now, again, I'm going to be using the same words. Okay, so I'm going to go what. Now I'm going to be using would. What would they have done had they known the meeting was canceled? What would they have done had they known the meeting was canceled? Well, had they known the meeting was canceled, they wouldn't have shown up. So my answer is right here. They wouldn't have shown up. Okay, and so if you look here, you know, we're using, again, the same words. You know, they is right here. Would is also right here. Okay, what would they have done? Then, had they known the meeting was canceled is all right here. Okay, so just use the same words. It becomes much easier. Number 8, the team should have been informed earlier about the changes in the schedule. The team should have been informed earlier about the changes in the schedule. Okay, so let's say my answer for this is going to be earlier. Earlier is the answer. Okay, so earlier is talking about time. It's talking about time. Whenever we're talking about time, we're going to be making a when question. Okay, now we're going to be using all of these words. Here's my subject. Now, a lot of times when we're using a modal verb, and I'm going to make a new banner here for you. Okay, we're going to have WH. One sec. Okay, let's look at that. So we got WH, modal verb, subject, and main verb. Okay, a modal verb is any verb that needs another verb. So it's kind of like a helping verb. Okay, so for example, you know, should. I can't just use should alone. I do have to put should with another verb, right? So I could say you should go to sleep early. So you should go. You should eat healthy. Okay, that's should needs another verb. Should is a helping verb. Helping verb we can say is a modal verb. Okay, can, right? I can swim. I can jump. Okay, can is a modal verb. Have to is a modal verb. So in these situations, this is the grammar pattern. right? So we've got when. Okay, so that's, I know my WH. Next, modal verb is going to be should. Okay, when should, now I need my subject, the team. When should the team, now my main verbs, have been informed. And then we're going to finish off the question with the rest. When should the team have been informed about the changes in the schedule? Well, answer is earlier. They should have been informed earlier. Okay, so here we've got a new sentence structure, a new way to make a question using modal verbs. Okay, let's look at number 9. Okay, will is a modal verb. Will is a modal verb. Okay, so the museum will reopen after the renovation is completed in December. Okay, reopen is my main verb. Maybe my answer is this, in December. So what could be the question here? Okay, because it's in December, we're talking about a day, we're talking about a month. So this is a when. A when question will be the easiest. Okay, so for me, maybe my question here, let's keep looking at the grammar on the banner. Okay, so I got my WH question is going to be when. Modal verb is will. Subject is the museum. Main verb is reopen. And I would just end there. Just end it right there. When will the museum reopen? When will the museum reopen? Well, it'll reopen after the renovation is completed in December. Okay, good, good, good. Let's move on. Let's do a few more, and then we'll call it a night. It is midnight here in Japan. I don't know what time it is everywhere everyone's watching. Hopefully, you guys are having a good day, whether it's morning, afternoon, or night. Let's look at number 10. It's unlikely that they will be able to finish the project before the deadline. Now, we could do a yes/no question here. We could do a WH question. Now, traditional yes/no question, we're going to use yes and no in the answer. But that's really kind of like textbook English. Like if you're studying in a class, if you're studying at school, if you're studying at a language school, or you have a private tutor, they might tell you that a yes/no question must have yes or no in the answer. But realistically, in conversation, in the real world, it doesn't happen like that. So I'm going to put a yes/no question here for this one. So it's unlikely that they will finish the project before the deadline. Right? So again, I'll be using yes/no. And I've got all of the words are here. I can use all of these words. So I'm going to start with will. Will they be able to? So still, I've got my modal verbs, subject, main verb. Will they be able to finish the project before the deadline? Will they be able to finish the project before the deadline? Answer, it's unlikely. All right, so then you could just say, well, it's unlikely that they'll be able to finish the project before the deadline. Okay, it's unlikely. Okay, I could make a different question if you wanted, not yes, no. We could make a WH question. That's completely fine. And that is completely fine. If you have a WH question, that's great. You let me know what it is in the comment section. All right, let's keep moving. Let's keep moving. Now, we're even a little bit more difficult here. By the time we arrived at the airport, the flight had already taken off. By the time we arrived at the airport, the flight had already taken off. Okay, so by the time we arrived at the airport, the flight had already taken off. What would we answer for this? What would we answer for this? For me, this is probably the most difficult one so far. Let's get the banner off the screen. All right, so what we're going to be using here is a WH question. Yeah, a WH question. And my question is going to be, what had happened? What had happened is how I'd start this question. What had happened by the time you arrived at the airport? Okay. By the time you arrived at the airport. What happened by the time you arrived at the airport? Okay, well, by the time we arrived at the airport, the flight had already taken off. So what happened? The flight had taken off. All right, there we go. So you look right here, you know, why do I have had happened? Because I'm using the past perfect here. So had taken off. Taken off is the answer. So what had happened would be the question. Okay, let's look at number 12. It is believed that the ancient structure was used for religious ceremonies. So I would say my answer is for religious ceremonies. For religious ceremonies. So what's the question here? Okay, this is also going to be a very complex sentence, a very complex question. So I'm going to go what here? What is believed? Because I'm using the same words. What is believed? Let me just fix this 1 sec. Okay, there we go. What is believed? Let's start all over again. 1 second here. There we go. What is believed to have been the purpose of the ancient structure? What is believed to have been the purpose of the ancient structure? Okay, that's the question here. Well, it is believed that the ancient structure was used for religious ceremonies. What is believed to have been the purpose of the ancient structure? Now, we could give even a very, very simple question. You know, even simpler. I give you a very advanced question. If I want to make it a little easier, maybe more intermediate, maybe high beginner. Okay, what was the ancient structure used for? All right, that's the easier one. What was the ancient structure used for? Well, it's believed that the ancient structure was used for religious ceremonies. Okay, we can make a why question, all right? So if you had a why question, Leave it in the comment section. Who can make a why question here? Fusa, good evening. Good evening. Good evening. How are you? Okay, let's keep going. Let's do number 13. Number 13, the answer, let's zoom. Or actually, let's just make the page a little bigger. There we go. He could have avoided the problem if he had listened to the advice given to him. He could have avoided the problem if he had listened to the advice given to him. All right, so what would be the question here? All right, so he could have avoided the problem if he had listened to the advice given to him. And again, I would use for me, in this question as well, I'm going to be using the modal verb. Kaz, good evening. Good evening. How are you today? For me, I would be using the modal verb grammar pattern here. And so for me, my question word for this will be how. How. All right. And then I'm just going to use this beginning part of the answer. All right. So how could subject he have avoided? That's my modal, or it's my main verb. How could he have avoided the problem? How could he have avoided the problem? Well, he could have avoided the problem if he had listened to the advice given to him. Now, we could have a different question. Maybe my question is a WH question. What would have happened if he had listened to the advice given to him? Well, he could have avoided the problem. Okay, that's a WH question. So again, anybody who's answering with a different question, just leave your answer in the comment section. Okay, let's go. Number 14. The results will not be released until all the data has been thoroughly analyzed. The results will not be released until all the data has been thoroughly analyzed. All right, so for me as well, keywords. I always look for keywords. And for me, the keyword here is until. Until, right? Whenever I see the word until, I'm thinking time. I'm thinking time. I'm talking about maybe a deadline or how long something has happened. So if I talk about time, then my question naturally becomes when. Okay, we'll use the modal verb pattern as well here. We'll use the modal verb pattern as well. So my question is going to start with when. My question is going to start with when. When will the results be released? When will the results be released? All right, well, the results will not be released until the data has been thoroughly analyzed. Okay, so I'm just using the same words like I've said so many times in this video. Results will be released. Same words. And the until is telling me that I must use a when question. Okay. Let's look at number 15. She might have been promoted had she stayed with the company longer. She might have been promoted had she stayed with the company longer. All right. I'm going to give you a really unique question for this one. I'm going to put a big star here, because I'm going to give you a very, very unique question. All right, so I'm just going to wait to see if anybody else is going to answer. And if not, then I'm going to put my answer. And I'm not using this pattern here. So we're going to get rid of that. Okay, she might have been promoted had she stayed with the company longer. All right, so what I will do here, I'm going to begin my sentence with the word under. Okay, under. So, under what condition might she have been promoted? Now, as you can see, even though I began the question kind of in a unique way, under what condition, from this point on, I'm using all of the words from the answer. She might have been promoted. Might she have been promoted? Okay, so under what condition? Under what circumstance? This is a great way to make a question. So, answer, well, she might have been promoted had she stayed with the company longer. Had she stayed with the company longer. Okay, let's do a few more and then we'll call it a night. Let's go to number 16. Unless the weather improves, the outdoor event will likely be canceled. I think that's the answer. The event will be likely canceled. So I'm going to put back my modal verb here, pattern. That's what I would use. All right. What will happen? And then all I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be using I'll be using this. What will happen unless the weather improves? Well, unless the weather improves, the outdoor event will likely be canceled. Now, I'm going to give you a different question. Instead of using unless, some people might not be sure, right? What is unless? Now, unless basically equals the phrase if not. All right? Unless equals if not. So I could put if not into this question. What will happen if the weather doesn't improve? Okay. What will happen if the weather doesn't improve? This is the same meaning. Same meaning. They both have the exact same meaning. So unless and then if not. Okay, let's look at number 17. Number 17, the answer. The answer is the professor mentioned that the essay would have to be rewritten before it could be submitted. maybe I would use that for my question. The answer, I would say, is here. The essay would have to be rewritten. The essay would have to be rewritten. So maybe my question here would be a WH question. What did what did the professor mention about the essay? What did the professor mention about the essay? Now, if you notice here, I'm using the do, does, did pattern. Okay, so we've got what did subject the professor main verb mention about the essay? What did the professor mention about the essay? Well, the professor mentioned that the essay would have to be rewritten before it could be submitted. Okay, number 18. The financial crisis could have been prevented had the government taken early action. All right, what do we answer here? For me, I'm just going to go straight with a WH question here. What could have prevented the financial crisis? What could have prevented the financial crisis? Now, how? I could use a how question. How could the financial crisis, how could the financial crisis have been prevented? Financial crisis prevented had the government taken early action. Okay, many different answers here. Okay, this is the modal verb we're using. Okay, we're going to do one more together, and then the next two will be for homework. Actually, next one will be for homework. We'll do one for homework, one together. So number 19 is together. Number 20 is for homework. She claimed that the book had been lost despite having borrowed it only last week. She claimed that the book had been lost despite having borrowed it only last week. Wow. Borrowing it only 1 week, and she claims it's lost. So for me, simple question. I'm going to go what? Right? And I'm going to go with my do, does, did pattern here. What did she claim about the book? What did she claim about the book? Well, she claimed that the book had been lost despite having borrowed it only last week. Okay, so now again, you might have a different question. Feel free to leave it in the comment section. I will check everyone's questions. If you are confused about some of these questions, also just ask me and I will explain it to you. I'll send you a message and we can work through it and help you figure it out. Okay. Now, homework. Next one is homework. Okay. I'm going to put a big WH right here. Not WH, HW. I'm going backwards. That means homework. Homework says, it is said that the CEO is planning to retire next year. though no official statement has been made. Okay, it is said that the CEO is planning to retire next year, though no official statement has been made. All right, so please do this one for homework. What is the question? All right, so your job here is make the question. What's the question for this answer? Okay, this is the answer. What is the question? All right, so do that for homework. If you're watching this, if you just come, if you're jumping in a little bit late, just go back, rewatch it. This is a great lesson. This is really useful to help you improve your question making. So in this lesson, I'm giving you the answer. You make the question. All right, so we've got 20 different chances for you to practice this. And as you can see from the title, we're going intermediate to advanced. Right, so these are a little bit more difficult questions. Okay, so we've got Strimmel. Okay, you're already trying to answer here. Why does the CEO is planning to retire next year? Okay, so if you notice here, we've got why does, and then the CEO is, right? So we're mixing a couple of the patterns here. So if you use be verb, we use this style, WHB. If you use do, does, did, we use this. So we're not going to use do, does, did, and be verb together. We don't usually use those together. Okay, so why does the CEO is planning to retire next year? So here, why? Whenever we ask a why question, it's very common that we are going to be using the answer for because or in order to. So in this answer, there's no because, there's no in order to. So I would use a different question word, not why. Strimmel, how about when? If you use the question word when. If you use the question word when, and if you use this pattern. That might work. So when and this pattern. So give it a thought, Strimmel. And if you have an answer, you can leave it now. If you want to leave it later, you can leave that later in the comment section, and I'll check. Okay, just make one note, does, and then is, does, is. We don't use those together. Your question is so close, Strimmel, though. If you got rid of the next year and is planning, just make it plan. That would work. Why does the CEO plan? Okay, so anybody else who's thinking this over? Number 20, you can leave your answer right now if you want. Or anybody, obviously if you're not watching this live, leave it in the comment section and I will check. Okay. In the meantime, if you have any questions, feel free to ask me right now about today's lesson or about any English problem, anything that's confusing with English. Fire away now. Ask me any question you'd like. If you don't have any questions, that's also fine. Okay, so it doesn't look like anybody has any questions, which is fine. That's great. If you're just shy, you can always leave it later. Just put it in the comment section, and I will answer your question. If anybody has a lesson request I do know that I still have to get Miranda's lesson. If Miranda, if you're watching, I still haven't forgotten. I will get your lesson done. We will do it. So the next time, hopefully the next time I see you. Okay, well, let's call that a lesson. Questions, they're very important. Whenever you want to keep a conversation flowing, it's important that we're active. We ask a lot of questions. Native English speakers, we love to ask questions. So practice this, rewatch it, try it again. Again, these are intermediate to advanced questions. If you have any issues, problems, questions, concerns, you're not sure about something, just ask me. And anybody watching on the replay, hope you guys enjoyed the lesson. And I'll see you guys all. My next live will be Saturday morning. That will be at what time? I'll be doing it at 8:30 a.m. Japan Standard Time. Okay, 8:30 a.m. Japan Standard Time. So that would be 8 hours from now. 8 hours from now. So if you want to count down the time, it'll be Saturday morning Japan time. Okay, guys, thank you very much for joining. As always, my name is Shelly. This is a live lesson from Shelly's English School. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys all in the next lesson. See ya.